The woman who once said I was holding her back stood on my porch at 1:13 in the morning, clutching a suitcase like it weighed more than her entire new life. 3 years earlier, Lauren Carter walked out of our marriage wearing size 4 jeans, a white designer coat, and the kind of confidence that only shows up when strangers suddenly start calling you beautiful again. That night, she told me she finally understood her worth. She said she wasted too many years living small beside a man who settled into routine. Then she climbed into Ethan Blake's black Range Rover and left me standing in the driveway holding a folder full of refinance paperwork she had asked me to sign 2 days earlier. Funny thing about divorce. Most people picture screaming matches and shattered dishes. Real divorce moves quieter than that. It starts with passwords changing, credit card statements shifting, Venmo transactions labeled with fake jokes, gym memberships expanding into hotel charges 30 miles away from the actual gym. Lauren lost 72 pounds over 14 months. I know the exact number because she tracked every calorie inside a shared spreadsheet connected to our family iPad. Toward the end, she guarded that spreadsheet harder than our marriage. Every Sunday night, she updated her weight, body fat percentage, step count, and protein intake. Meanwhile, I sat beside her reviewing mortgage rates and college savings projections for our daughter Ava. Same couch, same room. 2 completely different futures forming side by side. Back then, I still believed effort fixed things. I worked HVAC jobs across northern Illinois 12 hours a day, crawled through attics hot enough to melt rubber soles, stacked overtime whenever Ava's tuition bill landed early. Lauren used to appreciate that grind. Then the weight came off. Then the compliments started. Then came Ethan Blake, 46, cosmetic dental chain owner, divorced twice. The kind of guy who posted shirtless vacation photos with captions about discipline and masculine energy. Lauren first mentioned him after joining a private fitness club in Naperville. She called him inspiring, successful, focused. A month later, she started saying my work clothes embarrassed her in public. 2 months after that, she asked if I planned on doing anything with my life besides fixing furnaces forever. That sentence stayed with me longer than the divorce papers. Because once respect leaves a marriage, lawyers arrive soon after. Lauren prepared carefully. She opened a separate checking account 9 months before filing. I found it during mediation after subpoenaed bank records exposed automatic transfers disguised as grocery purchases. $200 here, $400 there. By the time she filed, she had almost 30 grand parked away under her maiden name. Ethan helped her structure it. That part came out later through metadata buried inside shared PDF drafts accidentally synced to our old family Dropbox account. People hide affairs. Digital habits expose them. Still, none of that compared to the moment she finally asked for the divorce. She sat across from me at our kitchen counter wearing black workout gear and an Apple Watch flashing calorie notifications every few seconds. Her voice sounded calm. Practiced. I finally realized I only get one life, Mike. Then she slid the papers toward me like a waitress handing over a dinner bill. I signed within 20 minutes. Her expression changed after that. She expected bargaining, tears, maybe rage. Instead, I asked one question. Does Ethan know about the debt? Her eyes sharpened instantly. That was the first time in nearly a year I saw fear move across her face. Because Ethan Blake thought Lauren Carter left her boring husband with a paid-off life. He had no idea her name still sat beside mine on $187,000 in hidden financial exposure tied to a business loan she personally guaranteed 6 years earlier. And at 1:13 that morning, standing outside my front door with mascara streaked beneath exhausted eyes, she finally understood what that signature actually meant. Lauren stared at me from my porch like someone trying to calculate whether regret still carried market value. 3 years earlier, she measured life the same way. Everything became an upgrade path. Smaller waist, richer man, better zip code, higher status dinner parties, more exclusive gym membership. She approached marriage like a subscription she had outgrown. The strange part? Our life used to feel solid. Before calorie apps and luxury fitness retreats rewired her priorities, Lauren spent Friday nights curled beside me grading middle school administrative reports while I reviewed HVAC invoices at the kitchen table. We built routines people usually mock until those routines disappear. Saturday mornings meant warehouse runs at Costco. Sunday evenings meant meal prep containers lined beside Ava's soccer schedules and utility bills. 20 years together leaves fingerprints on ordinary things. Coffee mugs, shared calendars, tax folders labeled in the same handwriting. Lauren once called that life comforting. Then somewhere after her 40th birthday, comfort started sounding like failure to her. I saw the shift long before the divorce papers arrived. It showed up in tiny corrections first. She replaced family photos with abstract black and white prints from a designer she found on Instagram. She swapped our bedroom furniture because it looked too suburban. She stopped introducing me as her husband at networking events and started using my first name like we were business acquaintances. One night at a dinner party, Ethan Blake asked what I did for work. Before I answered, Lauren smirked into her wine glass and said, "Mike keeps the Midwest air-conditioned." Everyone laughed harder than the joke deserved. I smiled anyway. Men learn that skill early. You absorb embarrassment quietly, so your family keeps breathing comfortably. Looking back, silence trained her to push further. The deeper she moved into Ethan's orbit, the more aggressively she audited our life. She questioned every expense under $500 while secretly funneling money into appearance upgrades. Lip fillers, skin tightening treatments, boutique fitness coaching. I know the timeline because her American Express statement surfaced during forensic accounting. 7 months before filing for divorce, she spent $9,300 at a cosmetic clinic registered under Ethan's business umbrella. Same period she accused me of financial irresponsibility for replacing Ava's transmission after her car broke down during college finals week. That hypocrisy changed something inside me. I stopped seeing emotional decisions. I started seeing strategy. Lauren never acted impulsively. She built exits carefully. Burner email accounts. Shared passwords phased out one by one. Beneficiary changes on retirement policies. She even downloaded property law PDFs onto the family printer while I worked overtime in Joliet during a brutal heat wave. Funny enough, the printer saved copies of every scanned document to cloud storage automatically. She never checked that setting. One night after she fell asleep, I opened the archive folder and found a scanned checklist titled Post-Divorce Financial Independence. Item number 4 sat highlighted in yellow. Maximize emotional leverage before filing. That sentence stayed in my head for weeks. Emotional leverage, like marriage, turned into negotiation tactics and exit positioning. After that, I started tracking quietly. I exported bank records into spreadsheets, flagged unusual transfers, matched timestamps against gym check-ins and hotel receipts. Ethan used the same private consulting office for business meetings and personal affairs. Sloppy people always repeat patterns. The more data I gathered, the calmer I became. Lauren mistook that calm for weakness. She had no idea I already mapped every financial movement tied to her affair by the time she filed. And 2 weeks after the divorce finalized, my attorney uncovered something even Ethan Blake failed to catch buried inside Lauren's retirement rollover paperwork. The retirement paperwork looked harmless at first glance. Standard rollover forms. Portfolio redistribution. A clean transition from one financial advisor to another after the divorce finalized. My attorney, Daniel Mercer, almost missed it himself until a routing number triggered a discrepancy during asset reconciliation. Lauren transferred 80% of her retirement balance into an investment vehicle connected to Ethan Blake's holding company 6 weeks before the court finalized property division. That single move changed everything. Illinois divorce law treats concealed marital transfers differently once third-party commingling enters the picture. Ethan thought he was helping Lauren protect assets before the settlement closed. In reality, he created a paper trail linking himself directly to financial concealment during active divorce proceedings. Daniel leaned back in his office chair after reviewing the transfer logs and said something I still remember word for word. Your ex-wife followed a rich man into poor legal strategy. That sentence carried more satisfaction than revenge ever could. I stayed quiet through mediation because silence forces arrogant people to overplay their hand. Lauren overplayed everything. She assumed working-class men stay financially blind. She mistook physical exhaustion for intellectual weakness. Meanwhile, I spent nights studying transaction records the same way I used to diagnose failing compressor systems. Patterns matter. Pressure leaves residue somewhere. Every lie creates heat eventually. Ethan's financial team structured the transfer through layered consulting invoices tied to one of his dental expansion projects in Scottsdale. Smart move on paper. Problem was Lauren lacked discipline. She kept screenshots. She documented validation like oxygen. During discovery, Daniel subpoenaed cloud backups connected to her old Apple account. Buried between gym selfies and restaurant photos sat a screenshot from Ethan reading, "Once your divorce clears, everything moves into the Arizona umbrella." Date stamp landed 14 days before her sworn financial affidavit claiming zero external asset movement. Perjury tends to ruin expensive lifestyles fast. Lauren still had no clue any of this existed. By then she floated through social media pretending life upgraded perfectly. Cabo trips, rooftop cocktail photos, designer handbags positioned carefully beside filtered smiles. Every image screamed happiness so loudly it started looking desperate. Ava saw through it immediately. That part hurt worse than the divorce. Our daughter stopped calling Lauren regularly after Ethan entered the picture. She never created scenes, never yelled. Ava simply paid attention. Kids catch emotional math faster than adults. She noticed Lauren skipped family weekends, yet somehow found time for luxury fitness retreats in Arizona and Miami. She noticed Ethan sending expensive gifts while ignoring basic respect. One Thanksgiving, Ava came home from college and quietly asked me, "Did Mom ever love us more than attention?" I stared at that question for weeks. Some sentences echo harder than court rulings. Around the same time, Ethan's image started cracking publicly. His second dental location faced tax issues tied to payroll reporting discrepancies. A former employee filed wrongful termination claims. Online reviews tanked after patients posted complaints about rushed procedures and aggressive financing tactics. Lauren attached herself to a man obsessed with appearances because appearances matched the version of herself she wanted to become. The problem with image-based people? Their foundations collapse fast under pressure. 3 months after the divorce, Ethan convinced Lauren to move into his gated community outside Oak Brook. She sold half her remaining jewelry to match the lifestyle around her. New furniture, country club dues, cosmetic maintenance, constant spending disguised as reinvention. Then the call started. Collection notices first. Small ones. Deferred balances tied to cosmetic clinics and leased luxury items. Lauren ignored them. Ethan coached her through every excuse. Cash flow timing. Temporary restructuring. Expansion season. Same language every over-leveraged businessman uses before the floor caves in. Then one Tuesday afternoon, Daniel forwarded me a confidential filing connected to Ethan Blake Enterprises. Federal auditors had opened a financial inquiry into one of Ethan's shell partnerships, and Lauren's retirement account sat directly inside the structure under investigation. The federal inquiry started quietly. No dramatic raid. No headlines splashed across television screens. Real financial investigations move like infection through drywall. Slow. Hidden. Expanding behind polished surfaces until entire structures rot from the inside out. Ethan understood that immediately. Lauren did not. She still treated image management like survival. 2 days after Daniel sent me the filing notice, Lauren uploaded photos from a luxury wellness resort in Sedona. White robes, detox captions, smiling beside a pool that probably cost more per night than my first apartment rent. Comments flooded in from women praising her transformation. "You glow differently now. Freedom looks beautiful on you." Social media rewards illusion faster than reality ever can. Meanwhile, Ethan spent those same 48 hours liquidating accounts. I know because Daniel pulled updated corporate disclosures tied to the federal review. 3 shell entities dissolved within 72 hours. 2 investment groups shifted ownership through emergency restructuring filings in Nevada. 1 dental property transferred into his brother's name for $1. Panic leaves fingerprints everywhere. Lauren stayed blind because she fell in love with presentation instead of character. Ava saw the unraveling before anyone else. She came home from Northwestern for spring break, carrying 3 textbooks and the exhausted expression people wear after losing respect for a parent. During dinner, she stared at her phone for almost 10 minutes before finally sliding it across the table toward me. Ethan Blake stood in a nightclub booth wrapped around a woman who looked 25 at most. Timestamp showed 1:42 in the morning. Same weekend Lauren posted about healing energy in Sedona. Ava spoke softly after I looked up from the screen. Mom blocked me after I asked about it. That sentence landed heavier than the photo itself. Affairs damage marriages. Pride damages families. Lauren built her entire new identity around public validation, so every contradiction threatened her psychologically. Instead of confronting Ethan, she doubled down harder. More cosmetic procedures, more luxury purchases, more filtered happiness online. People drowning emotionally often spend money like oxygen. Then the certified letters started arriving. IRS inquiries, asset verification requests, temporary freezes connected to the investigation. Ethan shifted from charming entrepreneur into survival mode almost overnight. Lauren called him focused under pressure at first. Then Ava forwarded me voice messages accidentally sent to the family group chat. Ethan yelling about missing funds. Lauren crying about frozen accounts. Somebody mentioning federal subpoenas in the background. Money pressure strips performance masks off people fast. Around that time, my own life started stabilizing in ways Lauren never predicted. I expanded my HVAC business into commercial maintenance contracts across DuPage County. Smaller company, lean operation, real profits, no fake luxury attached to it. I dropped 30 pounds naturally from work and routine. Ava started spending weekends helping with scheduling and invoicing. Peace entered the house slowly. Quiet dinners, clear finances, predictable mornings. Simple things regain value after chaos burns through your life. Lauren noticed that too. She started watching from a distance first. Ava mentioned her asking questions during phone calls. Was I dating? Did I still live in the same house? Had I renovated the kitchen? Small fishing hooks disguised as casual conversation. Then came the LinkedIn profile views. 3 in 1 week from anonymous accounts tied to Ethan's corporate network. After that, somebody attempted to access one of my business banking portals using an old shared password Lauren used years earlier. Failed login. Security flag. Automatic notification sent directly to my phone at 11:08 that night. I stared at the screen for a long time because only one person alive knew that password pattern outside my company. 30 minutes later, Lauren texted me for the first time in nearly 8 months. Mike, I need to ask you something important. Lauren's text sat on my screen for almost a full minute before I answered. 8 months of silence reduced to one careful sentence sent at 11:41 at night. No apology. No accountability. Just need. That word told me everything. People reveal their true hierarchy during collapse. Pride first. Survival second. Love somewhere far beneath both. I typed back 3 words. What do you need? Her response arrived immediately, like she had been staring at the typing bubble waiting for oxygen. Can we talk privately? I almost ignored it. Then another message followed. It is about Ethan and the investigation. There it was. The real reason. Fear finally outweighed ego. We met the next afternoon at a small coffee shop halfway between Naperville and Downers Grove. Lauren arrived 20 minutes late wearing oversized sunglasses and neutral colors like somebody trying to disappear inside her own life. The transformation shocked me more than I expected. 3 years earlier, she carried herself like a woman auditioning for a luxury brand campaign. Every movement calculated. Every outfit curated for attention. Now tension sat inside her posture like hidden wire. She kept checking the windows every few seconds. Kept gripping her phone. Kept scanning notifications. Anxiety changes people faster than age ever will. Lauren opened with small talk about Ava. I redirected immediately. Tell me why you are here. Her jaw tightened. Then the performance cracked. Ethan's accounts froze after federal investigators traced irregular movement through several investment structures connected to dental expansion financing. Vendors sued him. One former business partner filed fraud allegations tied to inflated property valuations. Then came the worst part. Lauren signed multiple secondary guarantees tied to Ethan's refinancing efforts during the previous year. She thought she was helping temporarily stabilize cash flow while audits cleared. In reality, she attached her own financial identity to a collapsing structure under active investigation. I listened quietly while she spiraled through explanations. Rich people speak a different language during collapse. Liquidity issues. Temporary exposure. Misinterpreted filings. Same polished vocabulary wrapped around panic. Then Lauren finally reached the real point. My attorney thinks they may come after assets connected to me too. I stared at her for several seconds before answering. You signed legal guarantees without independent counsel? Her eyes dropped instantly. Ethan handled everything. Of course he did. Men like Ethan survive by convincing people confidence equals competence. Lauren spent years mocking my cautious financial habits. Budget reviews, emergency reserves, debt ratios. Now she sat across from me trapped inside liabilities she barely understood because flashy men called prudence unattractive. The irony almost felt cruel. Then she slid a folder across the table toward me. Inside sat copies of loan agreements, partnership disclosures, and one document that changed the entire conversation. Ethan listed Lauren as a managing member inside in Arizona holding company tied directly to the federal inquiry. Her signature appeared on 3 separate filings. One signature dated only 4 months earlier. During the same period, she posted online about finally living authentically. Reality usually hides beneath inspirational captions. I studied the paperwork carefully while Lauren watched me like somebody waiting for a life raft. My attorney said you might know someone, she whispered. Someone experienced with financial disputes. I almost laughed at that. 3 years earlier, she treated my working-class instincts like dead weight. Now she wanted the exact stability she abandoned. Why would I help? I asked calmly. Lauren's composure cracked completely then. Tears filled her eyes fast and sharp, like pressure finally ruptured something internal. Because Ethan is trying to pin everything on me. That sentence shifted the entire board. Affairs thrive during fantasy. Survival reveals loyalty. Lauren spent the next hour unloading documents across the coffee shop table like someone trying to empty poison out of her bloodstream. Bank notices, legal correspondence, partnership agreements filled with language she clearly signed without fully understanding. Ethan structured everything through layered companies because complexity impresses people who confuse confusion with intelligence. I read every page slowly while Lauren watched my face for signs of judgment. She received enough judgment already. What she lacked was clarity. Federal investigators targeted one specific transaction chain tied to inflated commercial property values in Scottsdale and Mesa. Ethan borrowed against projected clinic revenues that never materialized, then rerouted investment capital through shell partnerships to maintain artificial liquidity. On paper, the businesses looked profitable. Under forensic review, the numbers collapsed instantly. Revenue timing mismatched vendor payouts. Payroll taxes lagged behind expansion claims. Personal luxury spending flowed directly through business operating accounts. Sloppy greed destroys wealthy men faster than poverty ever destroys working men. Lauren entered the structure late, which helped her legally, but Ethan inserted her name into managerial filings to spread liability exposure. Smart predators always look for softer landing zones before impact. He said, "Everybody signs these," she whispered while staring at one of the partnership forms. "Everybody desperate signs these," I answered calmly. Her eyes watered immediately after that. Not from the insult, from recognition. The hardest truths usually arrive sounding simple. Then she finally admitted something deeper. Ethan already started separating himself from her financially weeks earlier. He removed her access to 2 shared accounts, changed passwords tied to investment dashboards, shifted communication onto encrypted messaging apps. Same pattern Lauren once used against me during the divorce buildup. Funny how betrayal travels in circles. People who normalize deception eventually attract experts at it. I asked the question sitting underneath everything. When did you realize he was preparing to sacrifice you? Lauren rubbed both hands together before answering. The moment his attorney stopped returning my calls. There it was. Real fear. Romantic fantasy dies quickly once lawyers enter the room. She explained how Ethan's legal team instructed her to remain silent if investigators contacted her directly. Avoid written statements. Delay cooperation. Minimize involvement. Every recommendation protected Ethan first. Lauren second. She finally understood her role in his life. Trophy during success. Buffer during collapse. Across the table, her phone buzzed repeatedly. Ethan again. 5 calls in 20 minutes. She ignored everyone. That silence carried more honesty than anything she told me all afternoon. Then Lauren said something I never expected. "You were the safest thing that ever happened to me, Mike. I just got bored with safety." I leaned back after hearing that because boredom destroys more marriages than hatred ever will. Hatred at least carries emotion. Boredom turns loyalty into wallpaper. People stop seeing value in stability once life starts feeling predictable. Then they chase excitement until consequences arrive with signatures attached. Lauren spent years chasing intensity. validation, reinvention, the emotional high of becoming desirable again. Meanwhile, I spent those same years building invoices, paying down debt, maintaining systems, and protecting long-term stability. One lifestyle photographs better online. The other survives federal audits. Before leaving, Lauren asked whether Daniel Mercer would speak with her privately. I agreed to ask him. Then she hesitated near the table and lowered her voice. There is something else you need to know. She reached into her purse and handed me a flash drive. Ethan kept backups on my laptop after one of his assistants synced the wrong folder. I looked down at the small silver drive resting in my palm. Lauren swallowed hard before speaking again. Mike, I think those files prove Ethan planned the entire asset transfer strategy before I even filed for divorce. The flash drive sat on my kitchen counter for almost 2 hours before I opened it. Part of me already understood what lived inside those files. Another part still wanted one clean corner of this entire mess untouched by proof. Eventually, practicality won. It usually does after betrayal burns sentiment out of you. I plugged the drive into my office computer and found 3 folders labeled with dates stretching back nearly 2 years. Ethan organized everything obsessively. Financial projections, partnership diagrams, tax strategies, internal memos. The kind of documentation rich men create when they believe intelligence protects them from consequences. Then I opened a folder titled LC Transition. Lauren Carter. My stomach tightened instantly. Inside sat email chains between Ethan and his financial advisor discussing post-divorce positioning opportunities. The first message carried a timestamp from 11 months before Lauren filed. 11 months. That meant Ethan built the financial roadmap for her exit while she still sat across from me eating dinner every night. One attachment hit harder than the rest. A projected asset analysis breaking down my income, property equity, retirement exposure, and estimated emotional response patterns during divorce proceedings. Emotional response patterns. Ethan literally profiled me like a business variable. One note read, blue-collar providers typically avoid litigation escalation due to reputation fatigue and legal cost sensitivity. Another line followed underneath. Encourage amicable compliance through emotional reframing around personal growth narratives. I leaned back slowly after reading that because suddenly every conversation from the last years clicked into place. Lauren repeating phrases about finding herself. Lauren framing divorce as mutual evolution. Lauren acting strangely calm during mediation. Ethan coached the entire emotional architecture from behind the curtain. He sold her fantasy while studying me like risk management data. The worst part? It worked. I signed quickly because I wanted peace more than pride. Men like Ethan count on that instinct. They weaponize exhaustion. I spent the next 3 hours cataloging files into separate folders for Daniel Mercer. Screenshots, wire transfers, strategy memos, draft legal positioning documents. Then I found something even darker buried inside a subfolder labeled contingencies. Ethan planned multiple fallback scenarios if Lauren became financially unstable after the divorce. One option involved transferring her remaining assets into leveraged investments controlled entirely through his holding companies. Another included language about isolating liabilities onto emotionally dependent partners. Emotionally dependent partners. That was how he saw her. Not lover. Not soulmate. Liability sponge. Lauren destroyed her marriage chasing a man who viewed intimacy like corporate structuring. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Lauren again. This time her message sounded frantic. Did you look at the drive? I answered yes. 3 dots appeared instantly, then disappeared, then returned. Finally, she sent one sentence. There is more you need to see. Seconds later, another file hit my inbox from an anonymous Proton mail address. Video attachment. 37 minutes long. Security footage from Ethan's Scottsdale office dated 8 months earlier. I opened it carefully. Ethan sat inside a conference room speaking with 2 attorneys and a financial consultant. Lauren never appeared in the footage. She probably never knew the recording existed. Ethan paced slowly beside a digital presentation discussing exposure management strategies tied to ongoing relationships. Then he stopped near the screen and said something that made my chest go completely still. Once Lauren finalizes the divorce, we can move her retirement assets and eventually phase her out cleanly. She is emotionally invested already. She will sign whatever we put in front of her. Silence filled my office after that clip ended. 20 years of marriage collapsed for a man already planning her disposal before she even left my house. Then my phone rang. Lauren, crying so hard she could barely breathe. And before I could even answer fully, she whispered for words that changed everything again. Federal agents came today. Lauren arrived at my house 40 minutes after that phone call carrying 2 tote bags and the expression of somebody whose entire nervous system had started collapsing inward. Gone was the polished woman who once criticized my work boots for looking too middle America. She stood in my kitchen shaking while Daniel Mercer reviewed the preliminary federal inquiry documents through secure video conference. Federal agents questioned her for nearly 3 hours that afternoon about partnership transfers tied to Ethan's Arizona entities. They asked about offshore wire activity, luxury asset movement, shell corporations connected to medical financing groups. Lauren answered truthfully because panic strips strategy away from amateurs. Ethan, meanwhile, vanished. His primary phone disconnected. His downtown office locked permanently. One assistant resigned through email at 3:12 that afternoon. Another deleted her LinkedIn profile entirely. The empire Lauren abandoned her marriage for started dissolving in real time. Daniel shifted into full legal mode fast. Preserve every device. Forward every email. Create chronological timelines. Separate emotional memory from documented fact. Lawyers build survival through precision. Lauren struggled with that part because shame kept interrupting her concentration. Several times she stopped mid-sentence and stared down at her own hands like she barely recognized the woman attached to them. Then Daniel asked the question that froze the entire room. Did Ethan ever discuss using your divorce strategically before your marriage officially ended? Silence stretched hard after that. Lauren looked toward me once before answering. Yes. One word, barely above a whisper. Then everything poured out. Ethan coached her emotionally from the beginning. He framed reinvention like empowerment. Encouraged distance from me gradually. Suggested language designed to weaken emotional resistance during mediation. Even the gym transformation carried manipulation underneath it. Ethan studied insecurity professionally. He targeted divorced women through image-based validation and aspirational lifestyle promises. Lauren thought she found confidence. Ethan saw leverage. Hearing it aloud felt strange. Part vindication, part grief. 20 years together reduced into a psychological acquisition strategy designed by a man who viewed relationships like investment opportunities. Daniel stayed calm while taking notes. Then he explained something Lauren clearly never understood. Cooperation changes legal trajectories dramatically. The flash drive, video evidence, and timeline records shifted her status from potential co-conspirator toward manipulated participant if handled correctly. Ethan spent years constructing insulation layers around himself. Lauren accidentally pierced those layers through carelessness and emotional dependency. Ironically, the same emotional impulsiveness Ethan exploited might now destroy him legally. Around midnight, Daniel ended the call after scheduling meetings with federal counsel the following morning. Lauren sat silently at my kitchen table long after the screen went dark. She looked around the house slowly then. Same hardwood floors. Same family photos. Same ordinary stability she once called suffocating. Funny how peace regains beauty once chaos starts charging interest. You changed the kitchen lighting, she said quietly. I nodded once. Ava picked it. That answer hurt her more than any insult could have. Because life kept moving after she left. Our daughter grew closer to me. The business expanded. The house evolved. Stability survived her absence. Lauren stared down into her coffee for a long time before finally speaking again. I spent years trying to become the kind of woman people envy. I waited silently. Then she looked directly at me with swollen, exhausted eyes and whispered the sentence that explained her entire downfall. I forgot to become the kind of woman people trust. The room went completely still after that. Then somebody knocked on my front door hard enough to rattle the frame. 3 sharp hits. Immediate. Aggressive. Lauren's face lost all color instantly because deep down she already knew exactly who stood outside. The knocking came again. Harder this time. Lauren froze beside the kitchen counter, gripping her coffee mug with both hands like porcelain could somehow shield her from consequences. I walked toward the front door slowly while years of tension rearranged themselves inside my chest. Through the glass panel, I saw Ethan Blake standing under the porch light wearing a charcoal overcoat and the kind of expression rich men carry when control starts slipping away. His confidence looked thinner now. Eyes bloodshot. Jaw tight. Phone pressed against his palm every few seconds like he expected another disaster notification any minute. I opened the door halfway. Ethan skipped greetings completely. Lauren needs to come with me. Same commanding tone he probably used in boardrooms and private clubs for years. I leaned against the frame calmly. Lauren is free to make her own decisions. That answer irritated him immediately because men like Ethan depend on hierarchy, control, ownership. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. You have no idea what kind of situation this is. I almost smiled hearing that. 3 years earlier, he profiled me as a predictable blue-collar husband, too emotionally exhausted to fight back. Now he stood on my porch asking indirectly for cooperation while federal investigators dismantled his empire piece by piece. Funny how fast power shifts once paperwork replaces charisma. Behind me, Lauren finally walked toward the doorway. Ethan's expression changed instantly when he saw her. Anger mixed with calculation. Why did you talk to attorneys? He snapped. Lauren looked smaller than I had ever seen her. Yet something inside her finally hardened too. Because you were preparing to bury everything on me. Ethan exhaled sharply and switched tactics immediately. Softer voice. Controlled concern. Manipulators always pivot once intimidation stops working. He started talking about misunderstandings, overreactions, aggressive federal overreach. Then he blamed former partners, accountants, consultants, anybody except himself. Same pattern every collapsing narcissist follows once reality corners them. I watched Lauren carefully during the exchange. For the first time since I met her 23 years earlier, she finally saw him clearly. No gym lighting, no luxury vacations, no validation high attached to the image. Just a frightened middle-aged man trying to preserve himself before everybody else. Then Ethan made his final mistake. He glanced toward me and said, Lauren only left because she outgrew this life. Silence hit the porch after that. Because deep down, everybody standing there understood the truth already. Lauren never outgrew stability. She abandoned gratitude. Big difference. Lauren wiped her face slowly before answering him. No, Ethan. I traded loyalty for attention. That sentence landed harder than any courtroom verdict ever could. Ethan stared at her for several seconds, then finally looked toward me with cold, exhausted eyes. You think you won here? I answered honestly. This was never a competition. He laughed once under his breath, bitter and hollow, then walked away without another word. No dramatic explosion. No threats. Just the sound of a man realizing his influence finally expired. Lauren stood beside me silently after his car disappeared from view. Then she whispered the question hanging over. Everything since she returned. Is there any chance at all for us? I looked at the woman I once built an entire life around. The woman who chased admiration so far she lost herself inside it. Part of me still remembered Friday night grocery runs and soccer games and cheap pizza on folding tables 20 years earlier. But memory alone cannot rebuild trust once somebody mortgages it for temporary excitement. Lauren, I said quietly, love survives hard years. Ego survives applause. The problem is you started feeding the wrong thing. Tears rolled down her face again after that. I stepped back toward the doorway slowly. I forgive you, I told her honestly. But forgiveness and access are two different things. Then I closed the door gently between us. Through the glass, I saw her standing alone on the porch at 1:13 in the morning, exactly where this story began. Same woman, same house, completely different truth. And standing there in the silence afterward, I finally understood something most men learn too late. A peaceful life looks boring right up until chaos sends you begging for it back.